I've heard before that it takes 3 installments in a series to know if you're interested in it, and I'm here to test that out. Hey everyone, Skull902 here, and this is Rule of 3. So today, I'm doing something just a little bit different. I'm not only taking a look at the anime adaptation of Cardcaptor Sakura, but comparing it to its original English dub to see which one I like better after the first 3 episodes, in addition to the usual will I keep watching formula for this show. But why compare, you might be asking? Well, my dear viewer, have some backstory. The original Cardcaptor Sakura was a manga created by a group of writers collectively known as Clamp. The manga ran between 1996 and 2000 and was adapted into an anime which aired from 1998 to 2000. Cardcaptor Sakura, in its original form, is a romance-focused magical girl series targeted at a young female audience. Cardcaptors, in contrast, is an action-adventure show for general audiences. The Canadian production company Nelvana gained the English language rights to the show and made changes to its content to reach a broader demographic. It premiered in the US in 2000, and the American version contained even more edits to gear it toward a young male audience, cutting nearly half of the episodes and rearranging others. So yes, due to various edits, the show's target audience made a complete flip-flop between Japan and America, which is fucking crazy. For the purposes of this video, I watched the Canadian version as it aired in Australia and New Zealand. For some reason, the show didn't start airing in Canada until 2002, nearly a full year after the US run ended. But hey, at least they got all the episodes. A more faithful English dub of the original was produced for Southeast Asian markets in 2014 if I'm not mistaken, and that's what I watched for this review. Like all anime reviews in this series, I will not be covering the equivalent manga stories. That sure was a lot of build-up. Let's get into this. Let's first talk about some of the things that don't really warrant a comparison. Can't say I disliked any of the voice cast for either version. I think they all did fine with their roles, and whoever decided that Matt Hill was a good choice deserves a goddamn medal. The art style is nice and good, and holy shit the animation is really on point. Considering Madhouse animated this show, I can't say I'm surprised. In terms of looks, this show does nighttime scenes extremely well, and I am 100% serious when I say that some of the shots they did are among the best looking I've seen in anime. Unreal how well of a job these people did. Writing-wise, while the main focus is different between versions, it keeps a lot of the same sense of humor, which I like because I think the series' humor is pretty good. When it comes to the characters, nobody really drastically changed between both versions, so I'll put this in the general section. Sakura, is a good fit for protagonist. She comes across as more average than the other characters' dialogue would suggest, and that makes her fairly relatable. She also has a tendency to make some funny little observations, so that's a plus. Everyone else fills their roles as they should, which is always a good thing. Something I found charming in both versions was the budding friendship between Tomoyo/Madison and Kerberos, who I'll be calling Kero for the rest of this review. It was good stuff seeing them buddy up the way they did. The last thing I want to mention is that Kero's segments at the end seem kind of redundant because it's basically just him saying, "Whoa guys, did you know Sakura wears a skirt in this episode? Whoa!" But I'll excuse it because it lets me hear more of Matt Hill's amazing performance in the Canadian version. And now the differences. Aside from the obvious like character names and pronunciations, what is there to talk about? First up is the music. Now I get to compare 3 opening themes. So the Japanese original is a fun little track, fits what they were going for. The English dub of the Japanese opening, it's not that good in my opinion. Kinda sounds like they got lazy when writing the lyrics. That being said, the opening used for the Canadian and American versions, holy shit, that song fucking rules. It is, without a doubt, one of my favorite theme songs for anything. Forget whether or not it was the right idea to try and change the show's focus. This is how you do a theme song for an action-adventure cartoon. Oh my god. Well done. The North American closing credits are, as you'd expect for productions of the time, a shortened instrumental of the opening, so not much to say there. However, the Japanese and English versions of the closing theme Groovy are an absolute bop. Go take a listen, it's really good. Both shows' background music are good, but I hear more genericness in the Japanese tunes overall. Don't get me wrong. There are a few tracks in the Nelvana dub that sound generic as well, specifically the more dated ones that sound like pop music from the time. But when shit gets serious, we get some fantastic, epic pieces that I think sound original to the show and complement the theme song quite nicely. Writing, oh boy. So overall, the show has a really fun premise. Sakura accidentally let all the cards go and, endowed with special powers, now has to get them all back by capturing their spirits. Having already mentioned the characters, jokes, etc., where do things start getting different? Where it differs is in how much of the focus is on the adventure. Let me give you an example of what I mean. I like the action scenes in this show, but in episode 3 it felt like a bit of a tease because we barely get a glimpse of the water card spirit before it's frozen. However, I can forgive the Japanese version more for this because it's supposed to be more of a personal show about the relationships between characters. For the Nelvana dub, well, that just kinda sucks when you're trying to make it all about the adventure and magic and whatever other bullshit, you know? Especially when they already had to put in an extended flashback sequence to make up for all the content they cut from that episode. At that point, is cutting out the romantic aspects really worth it? It was an absolute drag to see, for the third episode in a row, how Sakura lost the Clow cards. It was already kind of annoying when the Japanese version did that in the second, so thanks for that. It's not terribly engaging when a decent chunk of the episode is dedicated to things that are still very fresh in the viewer's memory. Furthermore, it led to some inconsistencies. Sakura fawns over Yukito/Julian in the first episode as she does in the Japanese version, but then they completely ignore it in the next two, which leads to an absolutely awkward editing situation in episode 3. A planned meetup and day out at the aquarium becomes a spontaneous meeting while Sakura was trying to investigate. That's just one example. You'll see a few others if you watch both versions. But the biggest change of all and the most damaging to the story, I think, is in the very first episode when Tomadison tells Sakura where in the book they're reading from in class. Line 12? Line 48? What even is existence? All joking aside, what are my final thoughts? To tell the truth, I like both versions in their own sort of way. The Japanese version is very fun to watch and follow along with, and the Nelvana dub is pretty fun too. It's exactly the kind of late 90s/early 2000s dubbing I grew up with and, despite the inconsistencies I mentioned earlier, is able to keep itself coherent enough to keep me satisfied. It's due to those flaws, however, that I gotta say I prefer the Japanese version. It simply tells its story the way it wants to better than the Nelvana dub did. That being said, I want to finish both versions at some point. The show's got a good plot and cast of characters through the first 3 episodes, and I want to see where it goes from there. That's just about all I need to say. I hope you liked this special episode of Rule of 3. I've been Skull902, thank you for watching, and have yourselves a wonderful day.